and welcome to the Ice Guys, brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a sports betting perspective, with pro handicappers Alex B. Smith and veteran sports writer Jimmy Murphy. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Friday, December 17th, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, ready to break down the Friday NHL card. Of course, we've got tons of stuff going on in the NHL world right now. Postponements, more COVID-19 players added to the protocol list today across the league with many teams. We have a coaching resignation in Winnipeg that we'll talk about. Just an insane day of news surrounding the NHL. So, normally we look back on the Thursday card. We're going to shelve that for today because we're going to get right into the news of the day, and there's certainly a bunch. Let's start with the up-to-date COVID-19 situation with the NHL. We've got a bunch of postponements that have just been announced for Saturday. Of course, Columbus and Calgary had already been postponed for the Saturday card. You can add Boston and Montreal to the list. That game has been postponed as well, with the Bruins going through a COVID-19 outbreak. And Jimmy said it yesterday on the show with us, Alex. I don't think the Bruins are all that excited and keen to fly to Canada to play these two games here against Montreal and Ottawa.
Right.
And sure enough, definitely there was the right call by the NHL to say, postpone that game. Certainly Florida, Minnesota, another of the games on Saturday has been postponed, and another good decision by the NHL. Hell, if I'm the Panthers and I'm the management team, or I'm Andrew Brunette, or I'm one of the players, I'm boycotting. I'm not making the trip to Minnesota. You see our roster last night. We can barely put half our team on the ice right now with the protocol issues we're dealing with. And of course, we got ambushed by the LA Kings, and
Right.
The good news is we were all able to capitalize on that. We're pretty much all like the Kings in that game last night, but clearly their ability to compete is compromised right now with just so many key players out from this COVID-19 outbreak that they're going through. So even if that game hadn't been postponed in Minnesota tomorrow, I would have said, screw it. Fuck that. Why should we go there to Minnesota? Competitive integrity is compromised because we were missing half our team. So it was a good decision there by the league to postpone that game. And they also made that decision with Tampa Bay and Colorado on Saturday night as well. That game's been postponed. So as of right now, and I say keywords right now, because things could change. Hell, we might see more games postponed tomorrow. But as of right now, Boston, Montreal, Columbus, Calgary, Tampa Bay, Colorado, and Florida, Minnesota are all postponed because of these COVID-19 outbreak situations that have gotten worse, to be honest with you, with a lot of these teams. So concerning to say the least. Alex, I know from a selfish point of view, from a betting standpoint, we cashed in on the misfortune of the Florida Panthers last night, among other teams. But clearly the decisions to postpone these games, like Colorado's number of players impacted by COVID-19 and in protocol, they're going up. Florida, it's going up. Boston, it's gone up the last couple days. Plus, Boston's got to fly across the border to play these next two games. I'm sure the Boston-Ottawa game is going to get postponed. I think it's a question of when, not if, with that. And also, Elliot Friedman has just sent out a tweet mentioning that the Calgary Flames, Colorado Avalanche, and the Florida Panthers, those three teams specifically, have had all their games postponed through to Christmas. So they will be not playing at another game before the Christmas holiday break. So serious, obviously, the situation's getting serious, and took a while, but the NHL is finally acting on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we might see more teams hit that break, and that's why we could possibly see a league-wide pause within that week. And if there's any time to do something so drastic, it's right now, because there's already 3 days built in. This is the only Friday and Saturday off these teams have consecutively all season long. So to add a few more days to that, let the guys be with their families. Let the league set up the mandates and protocols, and teams need to get booster shots, have all that taken care of and out of the way, so that when we do get back to hockey, hopefully we can have it with as few interruptions as possible.
All of a sudden, our monster, usually mega show on Saturdays for the Ice Guys is down to 6 games on the schedule. And that's as of right now.
Yeah.
Will we still have 6 games by the time we do the show tomorrow at noon Eastern time? So stay tuned for that. So it's going to be a lighter Saturday card, unfortunately, due to reasons none of us like to see. But we will have a shorter Saturday card, obviously, tomorrow to break down on the show. All right, so that's the COVID-19 stuff up to date. Obviously, a stunning development with the Winnipeg Jets this morning. The resignation of Paul Maurice, head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, stepping down effective immediately. We heard it this morning, breaking news. I've seen the press conferences with Paul Maurice as well. What he said to the media in light of him resigning as head coach. And, we were talking just before the show started here, Alex and I. Is there something more to this? Are we missing something here? Is this a family? Is there an emergency with Paul Maurice's immediate family that's causing him to step away from coaching right now? And apparently, from everything we've heard and read, that's not the case. It's not a family situation. Is it maybe Kevin Cheveldayoff saying, you know what, things are starting to go in kind of the direction we don't like? We'll give you the option to resign, or I'm going to have to let you go. Was that a discussion that was had between the GM and the head coach? And because Paul Maurice was such a likable player with the organization, with the players, maybe they wanted to give him the option to step down instead of them framing it as a firing. Who knows if that was the case? Or was it, as Paul Maurice stated during that press conference, that, look, the team has kind of underperformed this year. I'm not convinced the players were hearing the message anymore from me on a daily basis in the dressing room. And maybe this team just needs it. That's how he framed it, Paul Maurice, that we just need a new voice. This team just needs a new head coach and a new voice at this point in time to take them where they need to go. And of course, Paul Maurice is one of the best eloquent, intelligent speakers you'll ever hear in an NHL press conference. We just said it so well. He's like, you can only push the boulder or the rock up the mountain so far, is what he said. And then you can only push it and you just can't get it any farther or any higher up the mountain. And that's basically kind of what he felt like with the Winnipeg Jets right now, that, hey, we've had a good run. We've been playoff team multiple years. We got to the Western Conference final, of course, one year when we lost to Vegas, the year the Golden Knights beat them in the Western Conference final. There's been a lot of good things that have happened with the Winnipeg Jets under Paul Maurice, but he felt he could only get them to a certain level. And for a Jets team that's been thinking not only make the playoffs the last few years, but win playoff series, get to a Stanley Cup final, that's the next level Winnipeg's trying to get to.
Yeah.
Paul Maurice made it sound like, Alex, in his press conference, that he was just not, in his opinion, he felt he could not get that Winnipeg Jets team to that next level, to that final rung on the ladder, if you will, and that's Stanley Cup contender status and winning the ultimate prize. So you got to give him credit, though. I'll say this, and then I'll let you, Alex, get in on this, but I have the utmost respect, and I always have, for Paul Maurice as a human being, as a coach, and as a person. And for him to say, you know what, it's just they need a new voice. Things aren't going well. And look, they've had some clunkers. The Buffalo loss was ugly. There was no spark. That was a lifeless performance a little bit against the Jets. Now, it's not just one game against Buffalo that's led to this decision, clearly. And he said that. But there's been moments where Winnipeg's had these really bad games, blowing a lead to San Jose early in the season. I still remember that one. A brutal game in Minnesota right around the Thanksgiving holiday where they just got completely crushed in that game. And there's been these little pieces of evidence here and there that, hey, something's not right with the Winnipeg Jets. They're not playing up to the level we thought. Blake Wheeler's offense has disappeared, and maybe the captain's kind of tuned out the coach. And if that's the case, because look, Blake Wheeler's had just been non-existent for the last, this year and second half of last year, then maybe they felt, look, if the captain's tuning out the coach and not listening anymore, and the message isn't being heard, then how could the rest of the players be hearing that message as well? So I respect him for making the move. If it is indeed, he just feels like, look, this is now the time for the players to get a new coach and hear a new voice. If that's indeed what it was, and I have no reason to doubt Paul Maurice here until something comes to light, utmost respect and admiration for him doing that. It takes guts to admit it, to say, hey, I'm not the right man for the job right now. They need a new voice. And for Paul Maurice, I wish him well. He is a class act. He always has been. And I'm going to miss his press conferences. Like I said on Twitter, some of the best press conferences. I cringe when I think of Bill Belichick fucking press conferences compared to Paul Maurice. Gives you absolutely nothing. Yep. On to Sunday. Well, just got to get ready for the next game. And then you get Paul Maurice basically bearing his heart and soul out there in every press conference, giving every sordid detail and such great information about what he's thinking, what the players are thinking, adjustments he's looking to make. And I'm going to miss, because Paul Maurice press conferences, at least until he gets his next job, Alex, because there's not many coaches that are as forthcoming to the media as he's been all these years. So Paul Maurice, good luck to him in the future. Alex, your thoughts on a stunning resignation of Paul Maurice this morning?
Yeah, it was just really shocking to read this morning. Like I said, hats off to him, and hope that all is well. And this was just truly, a decision he made on his own, and felt like it was just the right time to step away from the team. Now, the interesting thing of that is that if you listen to the press conference with the players that happened afterward, we were both talking about this off air. The players, this for most of those young core of this Winnipeg Jets team, it's the only coach they've known in that organization. So it it's just really strange to the point where the guys are kind of saying like, hey, like we're not tired of his voice. He's a guy that we really respected and admired, and they were kind of just more disappointed to see him go. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be the kind of firing where they need to get this guy out, and all of a sudden things turn around like what we're seeing in Vancouver. This seems like it might be more of a somber kind of feel for that locker room moving forward, and they've got to play a game in just about 6 hours.
Oh, absolutely right. I mean, if you watch these player press conferences after Maurice said his goodbyes, you would have thought they had no idea this was coming. No idea whatsoever that this was going to happen. I think it was a surprise to them. And because you see Adam Lowry and Andrew Kopp and Mark Scheifele and Josh Morrissey were the guys that spoke to the media this morning after Paul did, addressing his resignation, and they looked surprised by it. They looked like this was not something they expected to be dealing with here on a Friday morning, December the 17th. So this is not that automatic knee-jerk, okay, bet on the team after a coaching change necessarily. This team looks a little, just deer in the headlights, 1,000-mile stare, just in a little bit of shock, actually, about what's happened. I mean, the quote from Andrew Kopp during this press conference was, "I'm still trying to collect my bearings over this news." Does that sound like someone that knew this was going to happen? It sure doesn't sound that way to me. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what we get out of the Winnipeg Jets tonight. And it's very intriguing timing because, look, it's not like they have a day off. They got to get ready to prepare for a hockey game tonight against the Washington Capitals, a game that we'll be breaking down. By the way, Dave Lowry is going to be the interim head coach for the Winnipeg Jets. He was obviously on that coaching staff. And they've already decided, Kevin Cheveldayoff, the GM, has already stated that Dave Lowry will be the interim head coach for the rest of the season. This is not going to be an in-season coaching search for the Winnipeg Jets. They are going to let Dave Lowry coach the team the rest of the season, and then they'll decide, obviously, based on merit probably and how the team performs, whether Lowry becomes the permanent head coach after this season or whether they go in another direction and look for another head coach. But, I saw when I was watching these press conferences, Alex, and Winnipeg Jets fans were obviously stunned, and a lot of them were very appreciative of Paul Maurice, as they should be. You should not be. This is one human being and gentleman, and I mean that in every sense of the word, gentleman. That's what Paul Maurice is. This is not one guy you should be slagging and throwing stones at going out the door. Not in the least. You've had a great run with him, and a lot of it was complimentary, class act. I was happy to see the Jets fans react that way. That's the way they should react because he did a lot for this team. But a lot of people were already jumping to, coaching suggestions if Dave Lowry isn't the guy after this season. And I'm seeing the same old recycled people, Mike Babcock, Claude Julien. I mean, no disrespect to those guys, but I'd like to see a fresh young voice given that opportunity now at this point in time. Not that Julian's not capable. He's had success in the past. Not that Babcock hasn't had success in the past, but obviously we know some bad stories came out about him with the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Red Wings for that matter, going back in time with Babcock. It's just at some point, I'd like to see a fresh idea, maybe a fresh face given that first suggestion to be the new head coach, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even, I mean, when you look back into, the history of that franchise, obviously, of course, when they were in Atlanta, it makes me think about John Anderson, a guy who had coached with the Chicago Wolves for years. He's won at every level pretty much in the minor league hockey, and then finally got with the Atlanta Thrashers. Things looked bad, and he pretty much, after 2 years, never got a fair shake. He was an assistant for a while, but that's a big thing with these coaches. Like I said, there's some older faces that I like to see get some shots as well. Not just the same old recycled NHL guys, but some of those guys we see they're naming names of people for the Hawks. There was a couple of guys out of Europe that might be getting some chances too, and that's something we don't see. We don't see a lot of European coaches getting brought over into the league like we did somewhat in the 90s. So there's a lot that we can expect to see in the offseason with Winnipeg, and I think Maurice probably would have gotten fired this year anyway, because it felt like they were going to have the same old, they get into the playoffs but then have a disappointing exit. And like you said, he's taken that team as far as he can, so it makes the resignation of him at some point this season made sense, but the timing of it right now just seemed really odd. But still, like you said, he's done a lot for that franchise, that organization, and meant a lot to that city too. I know they do a lot of charitable things there in Winnipeg. So, like you said, it was nice to see the fans giving them the proper send off, and it's probably for the best now because they wouldn't have been as so friendly if they got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs this year.
Yeah, when you start to look at Winnipeg since like mid-November, Alex, prior to Paul Maurice stepping down today, they were 4-9 in their last 13 games. So Paul Maurice wasn't lying when he said, "Hey, things aren't, we've underperformed. We haven't played up to our standard." Especially you look at recently, they had this brutal losing streak, 5 in a row in November, and it culminated in that 7-1 debacle. I still remember that against Minnesota. That was one of the worst games the Jets have played under Paul Maurice that day. It was a Black Friday game right after Thanksgiving. And even after that, they beat Calgary, but they got shut out by Arizona, which is a bad loss, although Vemelka kind of stole it from them in that game. They won the next two against the Leafs and the Devils, but the Devils were struggling. The Leafs were in a tough scheduling spot. They played Minnesota the night before. And then after that, they lose to Carolina. They beat Seattle, which isn't saying a lot. And then the loss to Vancouver, where they blow a lead. And then, of course, the Buffalo loss, which was, again, a listless affair. And I think he was starting to see the pieces and the Paul Maurice in this puzzle, and the pieces aren't fitting right now.
Yeah.
And again, with the captain of the team, Blake Wheeler, that has been so disconnected offensively, it's hard to believe. Can a guy's skills and ability and talent and skill just evaporate that quickly? But he has not been right for a while. And you wonder, again, coach can't get through to the captain. How's he going to get through to the rest of the team? And I think that probably all factored in to the decision as well. But fascinating development here. Very surprising. We just didn't know if this was going to be the time Paul Maurice would be stepping down or if he'd be fired. But the fact that he resigned, he did it of his own volition, I think was even more surprising. But we will see how Winnipeg goes from here, how it goes for Winnipeg from here. And certainly we wish Paul Maurice all the best moving forward.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the Friday card. We've got 6 games. We'll start with the Vegas Golden Knights and the New York Rangers. Vegas minus 135. Road favorites here, 6 the total, shaded to the under in this one. Should be a good matchup, arguably the best game tonight on this card. Vegas continues to just roll along. 5-3 win against New Jersey last night. Got a little heated at the end of that game. My goodness. Big scrum toward the end of the game. Robin Lehner getting into it with some of the Devils players. I think Vegas was, and Lehner specifically, was miffed that a quote unquote, not a goon, but a guy that's out there maybe to cause some trouble. Mason Gertson was out on the ice there late in that game. I don't think that, and he kind of went after some of the Vegas players that had no intention of dropping their gloves or fighting the guy. And I think that's what made Robin Lehner a little bit mad. And so things got a little heated. But look, Devils are struggling. That's just a guy trying to, create a spark, create some life, some emotion with a struggling New Jersey hockey team. That's probably what that was. But Vegas, what that was for them last night was just their offense continuing to chug along at a very, very high level. I mean, this Vegas team has scored during the 6-1 stretch, 7, 3, 5, 3, 6, 4, 5. They've been just lighting it up at the offensive end of the ice. We'll see if that continues here tonight against the Rangers. New York, this is a bit of a challenging spot, to be honest, Alex, for both of these teams, because it's a back-to-back for the Vegas Golden Knights, and it's also going to be their 3rd road game in 4 nights as well this week. So it's not the greatest spot for them, and certainly it isn't for the Rangers either. This is going to be their 3rd game in 4 nights. They were on the road at Colorado, at Arizona, and they didn't exactly play their best. They're lucky they played a bad team because they did enough just to get by and win that game. And now they're back home following that little 2-game swing against Colorado and Arizona. So both of these teams could be a little bit lagging, a little bit fatigued, a little bit worn down based on the way the schedule has been for them. These teams have played a lot of games in a short period of time recently, especially the New York Rangers. I mean, you look, they played December 7, December 8, December 10, 12, 14, 15, and here they are again playing on the 17th. This is like their 7th game in 11 days for the New York Rangers. That's a lot of hockey in a short period of time. So I would only look over the total here. It's 6. I'm certainly not going to talk anyone out of taking a Vegas game over the total right now with the way they're scoring. Alexander Georgiev has been confirmed in net for the New York Rangers tonight in this game, which isn't surprising. For the Vegas Golden Knights, it was supposed to be Laurent Brossoit last night against New Jersey. It was looking likely that he was going to play, but it ended up being Robin Lehner when it was all said and done. So the question now becomes, where does Pete DeBoer turn for goaltending tonight? Is this the night he goes to Laurent Brossoit? That could be the case. Either way, right now, I am interested in looking over the total in this game. As far as the side goes, I don't want to go against Vegas, but they're on a back-to-back, and you are getting a home dog price with the Rangers, who, by the way, won't have Artemi Panarin in the lineup tonight. Worth noting, of course, he'll be out for the New York Rangers. Not a COVID issue for him. It's a lower body injury, and he will be out for at least this game. I still think we'll see some goals. So for me, it'll be over 6 with the Golden Knights and the Rangers. Alex, what do you think here? Vegas, New York.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at the first period over here. I think we can get some goals early. Vegas, they're always aggressive. They're always on the forecheck, and I think, their style with New York is gonna be able to kind of open things up a bit more. So we'll see that opening. And the way the Rangers have played as of late, their offense has kind of dried up a bit. So they want to try to be a bit more aggressive once they get into the opponent's zone as well. So I think we see goals early. Might taper off a tad bit late where 6 is kind of high. So, if you do like the over, you could probably wait for an adjusted number. Grab 1.5 now, but get an adjusted total over, full game over early. And then that way you have the 1.5 already locked in, and you have over 5.5 at a better price than you will with the 6.
All right, Buffalo, Pittsburgh. We've got the Penguins minus 300, home favorites 5.5, the total in this one. Well, I stuck to my guns with those Buffalo Sabres last night. I said, plus 1.5, and I split it up. It's exactly what I did. It's plus 1.5 on the Sabres and a little on the money line as well. I thought, hey, you ride the wave that is Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen right now for the Sabres. The fact that he really has been terrific. Like, I can't imagine he's going to keep this up all season. There's going to be a leveling off at some point, but you don't want to call for the leveling off to happen when you haven't seen evidence of it yet. And we saw that last night against Minnesota. Another very solid game in net for him for that victory against the Minnesota Wild. But this is a tricky spot for Buffalo now, second of back-to-back for them on the road, going from Minnie to Pittsburgh. Talk about another team that's played a lot of games in a short period of time. For the Buffalo Sabres, this is going to be their 5th game in a 7-day stretch for them. So that's a lot of games in a short period of time. Fatigue really could be an issue here for Buffalo, in my opinion, in this game tonight. And it seems like, we don't know for sure yet, keep an eye on this, no confirmation from Don Granato with the goaltending yet, but it seems like we're going to see a Malcolm Subban sighting in net tonight for the Buffalo Sabres. Likely is the latest update on that. So Malcolm Subban right now is who we're going to assume, I should say, will be the goaltender tonight for these Sabres, because as good as Luukkonen's been, Alex, he needs a rest. I mean, it is a back-to-back here on the road. And for Subban, he's appeared in just the one NHL game this year with the Sabres, and it was 6 goals on 25 shots allowed to the Carolina Hurricanes in that game. So it was not very good for Subban in that game. So probably with the team tired, you could see sloppy play with the puck. You could see some mistakes. I think the best way to go here is Pittsburgh team total over 3.5. That's the way I'm going to play it here in this game. I could see Sabres having a tough time tonight. And look, Subban, based on the one piece of evidence we have in that start against Carolina, the one start he's made in the NHL, I don't know if he's going to be able to make those 10 bell, 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 star rating, if you will, saves that we've seen from Luukkonen here the last few games for the Buffalo Sabres. So again, the one thing you worry about with Pittsburgh is they're a team that usually likes to play pretty good team defense lately, maybe keep things a little bit low scoring, but they did explode for 5 goals against Montreal. They did put 4 on the board against Washington, 6 on the board against Seattle, 4 on the board against Vancouver. So outside of the 1-0 win against Anaheim, for the last 5 games, Alex, we've seen Pittsburgh score 4 more goals. And I think they're capable of that tonight. So Pittsburgh team total over 3.5. minus 130 for me. Alex, your thoughts on Sabres and Penguins?
Yeah, that's what makes total sense here. I was going to look at the over 5.5, but like you said, Pittsburgh's been responsible on their own end defensively. Of course, Tristan Jarry has been dynamite of late in net after having that slow start from last year and going into the beginning of this year. But if it is Malcolm Subban and net, and it would make sense, you have to play him at some point. You can't run Ukko-Pekka down into the ground. This kid's got a bright future. He's already playing like an NHL caliber goalie. He's the future, and he might actually be the present. But you can't run him down into the ground just because the rest of the goaltending and the entire organization is so awful. You're gonna have to play those guys unless you make changes. And it's interesting because I mentioned it about a week and a half ago. Anton Khudobin was waived by Dallas, and there had been talks beforehand about him possibly getting traded to Buffalo. I don't know what changed now where they won't even give him a look, because I mean, if you have Luukkonen and get a veteran like Khudobin, you can be done with all the Subban, Dell, whomever mess, and just bury that down in the AHL once and for all. Like,
That is a mess, by the way. Yes.
yeah, so it would make total sense, to get him at a prorated deal and to back up Luukkonen, make Luukkonen your number one guy, and then if you want to give him reps, because let's face it, Buffalo's season's basically done from a playoff standpoint, but give him the reps so he can be ready to be a number one guy, and then you still have a backup who's capable enough to steal you a win or two later in the year. So, with that being said, overs are really just the way to go with Buffalo, but like I said, don't want to rely on their offense tonight. I'll go Pittsburgh team total over as well.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing Jari in net. Yes, we are, for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And to say he's been good lately has been an understatement. He's been very, very good. The team defense, though, has been very good in front of him as well. That plays a part in it. Yeah, I wouldn't argue with the people in the chat. Pittsburgh first period puck line. Maybe jump on them early. It's plus 105, plus 110 for Pittsburgh, minus a half in the first
That's a
period.
better option than the first period over.
Yeah.
So yeah, in my opinion tonight.
I might bet that too. Pittsburgh first period puck line. It has cash 4 in a row as the astute Chris Otto's on top of everything with team trends and team totals and period totals knows. Yes. Pittsburgh, and certainly they've got the schedule in their favor with Buffalo coming in after a game in Minnesota last night. And it's a win too. Like, it's Buffalo that's beaten Winnipeg and Minnesota back-to-back games. This could be, they're satisfied. They're happy. Everybody's, got a smile on their face now, and then back down to earth a little bit tonight in a tough spot here, maybe against the Penguins tonight. All right, Dallas and St. Louis. We've got even money here, both sides. 5.5 the total in this game with the Stars and the Blues. There's still a lot of artillery out of the lineup for the Blues right now. Jordan Kyrou is one of the guys they miss the most. It's an upper body injury, won't play for the Blues tonight. They do have, it looks like, Jordan Binnington off the COVID-19 protocol list, but they're not going to put him in just yet as a starting goalie. Charlie Lindgren has been confirmed as the goaltender tonight for the St. Louis Blues in this game. But they're still down Jordan Kyrou, they're still down David Perron, Braden Shen, and Robert Thomas. So still some key pieces missing for the St. Louis Blues tonight. As far as Dallas is concerned, Rick Bowness read them the riot act for just a brutal game the other night against St. Louis when they played them in Dallas the other night, 4-1. And the Blues were even more shorthanded in that game than they are tonight. And it couldn't have been a worse game for Dallas. They said, we can't win anything with our top guys playing like that, is essentially what Bowness said on verbatim anyway, following that loss to the Blues. I'd expect a lot better from Dallas here. I'm willing to take a shot with them here, even money price, after the coach basically wasn't happy one bit with the effort and the compete level from his hockey team the other night against St. Louis in Dallas. It's in St. Louis this time, but I think you'll get hopefully a much more responsive Dallas team. I know Dallas has not been good on the road this year. It's definitely the one thing that concerns me, but I think you get a good effort from them after the head coach was more than a little bit surly with what he saw from Ben Sagan and many of his top players in the loss to the Blues, with the Blues decimated. And he knows that Dallas they didn't bring it. Maybe just assume they're going to step on the ice and beat a depleted St. Louis team. Doesn't work that way. So I'm going to take a chance here. Dallas, much better effort. Still a very, very shorthanded St. Louis team. I don't trust Lindgren. I'll certainly give Holtby a little bit of a goalie edge. And Holtby's been good this year. Let's not lose sight of the fact that it's been a bit of a resurgent year for Braden Holtby. The win-loss record's only 5-6, but 2.39 goals against average and .923 save percentage. So the numbers have been quite solid for Braden Holtby this year, and he'll be in net tonight for the Stars. And I'm going to go with them here. Dallas, minus 110 in this game. Alex, Stars Blues.
Yeah, I grabbed them last night actually at plus $1.11. And I thought that was a wonderful price because we already talked about how Bowness, like I said, read them the riot act, told them, called out the top lines. saying these guys aren't working hard enough, not getting the right quality and production they need to be doing. So adding that into the mix with, you said this is still a beat up St. Louis team. They had to come back home and now facing them a second straight time. I think this is just a good play on spot for Dallas right now. And like I said, Charlie Lindgren, even though he's 4-0, he's got good numbers, 1.98 goals against average. You're just kind of waiting for the dam to possibly break a little bit. This might be the team to do it.
All right, Alex liking Dallas here as well at even money price against the St. Louis Blues. All right, Washington Capitals and Winnipeg Jets. We've got Winnipeg minus 115 home favorites, 6 the total, shaded to the under in this game. As we just stated with this resignation of Paul Maurice, that seemed like a group of players and a dressing room that was floored by this. Didn't necessarily expect it. And I don't know if this is just an automatic, hey, balls to the wall performance and strong effort here in the first game after the Paul Maurice era comes to a conclusion. Of course, Dave Lowry takes over as the interim head coach. Not only that, in terms of question marks, where's the focus going to be for Winnipeg? This has kind of blindsided everybody. It sure sounds like nobody saw this coming inside the Winnipeg Jets dressing room. So what is that going to leave the Winnipeg Jets going into this game? That remains to be seen. But this is not one of those automatic situations like with the Vancouver Canucks for me a couple weeks ago with Bruce Boudreau taking over, where I just bet on the team immediately following a coaching change. I'm not doing that with Winnipeg. They looked a little deer in the headlights, shocked, 1,000-mile stare that they saw a ghost, whatever term you want to use. That's kind of what it looked like for the Winnipeg Jets following this morning with listening and seeing the facial expressions of their players with the news that Paul Maurice obviously was resigning as head coach of the team. So definitely, I'm not entirely sure we get the best from the Jets tonight. And keep in mind, Washington's coming off a shootout or an overtime loss to Chicago the other night against the Blackhawks. It's a Washington team that you would think after that loss is going to want to atone for that. Although Washington's not a team I'm rushing to bet right now either, just because of the fact you've got a Capitals team that's not really been playing their best. They've had games where they've struggled to find offense outside of Ovechkin. They've had games where, the defense and the goaltending has let them down, kind of like what happened against Chicago. I mean, Chicago had 3 goals in less than a minute the other night against Washington. I was shocked by it, just how that incredible, sequence there where Chicago just blitzed them for 3 goals in the second period and obviously rode that to the victory. So I don't know. To me, the more I watch Washington, Alex, the more they look out of sorts. This is not a team playing their best hockey right now. So it's kind of 2 teams I'm suspect with on both sides right now going into this game. But what I do like is the over, because the one thing Adam Lowry said, and look, he knows his dad very well. Dave Lowry, of course, his father, about to become the interim head coach here for the Winnipeg Jets. He knows his dad well, and he said some really telling things that his teams, going back to when he coached junior hockey years ago and World Juniors for Canada, you go on down the list of teams coached by Dave Lowry. They play extremely fast. They transition the puck north-south in a hurry. They really want to get that element of their game, play with the puck, play with fast, move the puck quickly, all of those things. So not that they didn't do that with Paul Maurice, but apparently Dave Lowry takes this to another level with just playing with that pace and transition game. So for that reason, I think we might see a fast-paced game tonight, and we might see it from Washington too after losing the other night to Chicago. So I do like over the total of 6 here, which you can get around even money. And I'm sorry I didn't mention this in the last game, because I'm glad the chat's brought it up. Hintz and Radulov for Dallas are going to play. It looks like they are back for the Dallas Stars tonight, which is significant. Yes, they've definitely been missing some time, but it looks like both of them will be in the line. Miro Heiskanen's the main absence right now for the Dallas Stars. It's a non-COVID illness for him. The defenseman, the great defenseman for the Stars, Miro Heiskanen, not expected to play, but they will have Alexander Radulov, and Rupe Hintz is the big one. He's had a great season for the Stars. Hintz and Radulov will both play tonight for the Stars in that game against the St. Louis Blues. So I'm on over the total here with Washington and Winnipeg. Alex, Capitals, Jets.
It's funny, Chris mentioned in the chat if I'm going to be playing this first period over, because, yeah, I've been burned by the Winnipeg Jets, but that's the only way I could lean and look here would be that, and along with Washington money line. Like I said, Washington's been a bit shaky of a team to back, and I've made a couple of bucks fading them as of late. You mentioned that Chicago getting that overtime win against them at home. But this definitely just feels like a fade spot more for Winnipeg. Like I said, the way the players looked and sounded after this announcement just didn't feel good. It felt like they, were a bit bewildered and just kind of lost, a little dismayed, if you will, that he's left, and now all of a sudden they've got to try to turn things around. It's like, was anything really addressed? Like like I said, okay, going up tempo and playing with a little bit more pace. Sure, Winnipeg could have always used that a little bit. But do you really want to do that right now, especially with a Washington team led by Ovechkin that will absolutely murder you with their transition game? You look at guys like Lars Eller. Lars Eller almost had a breakaway shorthanded goal and another breakaway goal.
And Nicholas Backstrom back.
Right, and Nicholas Backstrom returning. So these are guys who are monsters as far as the transition game is concerned. So with that being said, I like Washington here. I grabbed them at even money. I think they're going to be able to handle business. Like I said, they'll be a little ticked off with the way they lost that game in Chicago the other night. And I'll take the first period over. Like I said, Winnipeg burned me, but I don't think we even really need Winnipeg's help here. This might be a 2-0 Washington lead before the end of the 20.
All right, there we go. Alex liking Washington here. You can get them around even money here, plus 100 in this game. All right, Nashville, Chicago. Oh, by the way, Tom Wilson still day-to-day, it looks like, for the Capitals. But they did get Nicholas Backstrom on the ice for the first time in the game against Chicago. And as Rich in our chat says, yeah, they get the star player back, or one of the star players, Backstrom, and they lost that game. The trend continues, right? Star player back first game, and they don't win the game. It's just, it's amazing how that continues to play out that way in the NHL. Countless examples. McKinnon returning for Colorado, Crosby returning for Pittsburgh, goes on and on and on. I believe Marchand for Boston. I mean, there's just been so many examples for the of these teams not getting it done first game with the new guy back in the lineup. So it just goes on and on. It continues to be a trend that continues to come in. Nashville and Chicago next up. We've got Chicago minus 140, home favorites, 5.5 the total in this game. Should be interesting to see how it goes here. I'm kind of maybe looking at a team total over tonight for Chicago at 3.5 here, plus price, because I think it might be David Riddick in net for Nashville tonight. And we know he's as Jekyll and Hyde and as up and down and inconsistent as it gets. For the Nashville Predators. He's had some good starts this year. He's had some bad starts, but overall 3.1 goals against average, 880 save percentage this year for Riddick. Now, I'm just assuming it's going to be Riddick because it's a back-to-back situation. And, of course, last night in the game against Colorado, which Nashville won by a score of 5-2, we saw UC Saros in that. Would we see him again for the second straight night? I'm not so sure about that. A little bit of a tricky spot for Nashville. But they did have 3 days off before that Colorado game last night. So even though it's a back-to-back, they were at least fairly rested going into that game. I lean Chicago here. The one issue, Alex, that I have with Chicago is they don't follow up a win with another. That has been their track record. That has been their pattern lately, especially since Derek King's been the interim coach. They just haven't had that ability to put good games together, good performances together, and put 2 straight wins together for a very long period of time. I do think the schedule's in their favor. I certainly think this team's overall game at both ends of the ice, Alex, it's progressed. The goals are starting to go in again, and the defensive game remains pretty solid. Last game notwithstanding, still that wasn't one of their better defensive games against Washington, but they still got the win. And overall, Fleury's played better. The team defense has been a little bit better. So I kind of want to take Chicago. The schedule's in their favor, especially if it's David Riddick in net. I would lean Chicago. I'm on the fence whether I'm going to pull the trigger. I might pull the trigger for sure on the team total if we get a David Riddick confirmation, though, for the Chicago Blackhawks and go over that 3.5, which you can get at a pretty good plus price at this point in time. And keep in mind, Nashville's still short-handed. We were concerned about that against Colorado, but Colorado ended up being even more short-handed with the late COVID-19 protocol announcements that were made right before the game that ticked me off a little bit. All of a sudden, whoa, Makar, whoa. Kemper, whoa, all these guys that are in COVID protocol, man, right before face-off, and sure enough, it showed up in the loss to Nashville last night. But keep in mind, the Predators have Duchesne potentially not playing tonight. Granlund's out, Johansson's out, Nick Cousins is out. They're gutted at the center ice position a little bit. That could show up for Nashville tonight. So definitely lean Chicago, and certainly might bet the team total over 3.5 for the Hawks if we get Riddick in net. Alex, what do you think, Nashville, Chicago?
So yeah, the interesting thing that happened with that Hawks game, they did get the win, but there's no reason it should have gone to overtime. This is the third time now in the last month where we've seen the Hawks blow a lead with literally 30 seconds or less left in the contest, and it's killed me in some form or fashion as far as an in-game bet every single time. It never fails. So I really hate to see that. But one of the things that really kind of sticks out with this is that obviously these two teams don't like each other. This is a rivalry going back all the way since the beginning of Nashville's start. And basically, there's always been close games in the last several years. You look back, 5 of the last 10 games have gone to overtime. Of the five that didn't, 4 of those were 1-goal games or games with an empty net goal to make it a 2-goal game. There was only one blowout in the last 10 meetings. So these two teams play each other really tight. Nashville, obviously being shorthanded, still dealing with a lot of COVID issues. They don't really have the firepower to just start up a track meet. The Hawks really don't like starting up track meets at home as of right now. That seems to be the new mantra under King. Even though the offense is getting rolling, especially 3 power play goals, was very, very happy to see that happening. So with that overall, I'm gonna look at the regulation draw here plus 300. That's what I played earlier today. Jarek Rubin in the chat made a really good observation. Look at 2-2 regulation score plus 800. It worries me a little bit just because, like I said, with it being Riddick in that, maybe it ends up being 3-3 instead of 2-2. But either way, I feel like we see a tie after 60 minutes. So I'm going with the regulation draw at plus 300.
There you go, plus 300 draw Nashville, Chicago for Alex in this one, the draw king. He's gone to the well with the draw a lot throughout his career, throughout our tenure on the Ice Guys show here. So definitely looking at the draw. Actually, I've got something being delivered to my place. I thought I heard maybe it arriving, so I just want to make sure I don't miss it. That's why I was looking out the window.
Yeah, it's that time of year.
It's that time of year. I getting stuff delivered. Got to order gifts for people and booze for the Christmas season for me. So I'm waiting for one of these parcels to arrive. But nevertheless, I digress. We go to DraftKings. We'll mention them before we get to our last game on this Friday card. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL and NHL. You'll be a winner with one single point scored in an NFL game this weekend. New customers who bet just $1 on any team to score in the NFL can win $100 in free bets. It's that simple. If DraftKings Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $1 on any team to score and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score with promo code THPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL and NHL. Must be 21 years of age or older. Must reside in a DraftKings Sportsbook state. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Sign up for an account and use the promo code THPN. All right, let's get to our final game on this Friday card. It is the Arizona Coyotes and the Anaheim Ducks. Anaheim minus 290. Home favorites here. 5.5 the total, shaded to the under. Of course, we've now seen Arizona get hit by COVID-19 a little bit as well, with Lawson Krause added to the COVID-19 protocol list yesterday. Jay Beagle added to it as well for the Coyotes. And then there are a couple of players that are dealing with some injury issues. Christian Fischer, Ryan Dzingel has an upper body injury. He's out. Jacob Chikrin, key blue liner for Arizona, is on injured reserve now as well. Along with Connor Timmins, another blue liner that just underwent successful knee surgery and now will be out for the rest of the year. So it's a combination of injuries and COVID-19 protocol right now for the Arizona Coyotes. So there's no way I back Arizona here. There's just no way. It's a question of where can you extract value here on the Anaheim Ducks. It's not exactly easy to do that. You got to lay a huge, monstrous price on the money line with them. Even the puck line's -1.5, -125. The regulation line's -190. So, it's not exactly easy to take the shot here with Anaheim. I'd lean puck line -1.5, -125. Lean as well 3.5 over the team total for the Ducks. Those would probably be the two best options I would find for backing Anaheim in some form, but just lukewarm. I don't even know if I'll take it. I'll throw out those leans though tonight, because the one thing about Arizona, they did compete against the Rangers. I was impressed with their effort level in that game against New York the other night. Hell, they were up 2-1. They couldn't hold the lead, and they ended up losing 3-2. So be careful here with laying a price like this against Arizona. That was one of their better competitive efforts against a very good Rangers team the other night, even though they couldn't hold on and even though they ended up losing 3-2. So don't know if I'll get to the window, but I'll throw out a couple of leans. Anaheim puck line, Anaheim team total over 3.5 for me. Alex, what do you think here? Coyotes and Ducks.
Yeah, I'm a little bit distracted because now they're saying they're going to be postponing some NFL games. One game's getting the Browns and Raiders games getting moved from Saturday to Monday, 4 o'clock Central. So
yeah, they had mentioned they maybe were doing that.
yeah, so that's something to keep note of now. We're seeing games getting moved in other leagues. So keep an eye out on that. But as far as this Anaheim game, you talk about trying to extrapolate value from the Ducks. We should have done that yesterday. I played as soon as we got off the air, minus 1.5, minus $1.05. I was like, that number's only going to go up because everything else is already astronomically high on the open. And now, like you got said, you got to lay $1.25 to get that 1.5. Pretty much just moved because it's a number. I don't do that often in hockey or really any sport. I don't just bet a number because it's bad, but that's kind of what I did. Like I knew there's gonna be at least 20 to 25 cents of value. I called that perfectly, so I have that in pocket. But it just seems like it's probably gonna be like a 3-1 kind of boring Anaheim win. So maybe with a lean to the under there as well.
Yeah, that definitely, I could see this one staying. I kind of like, I could see, Jarek mentioning correct score, 3-0 Ducks, 3-0 Ducks, 3-1 Ducks, 4-1 Ducks. I mean, I think one of those three combinations could get you a win.
Yep,
if you're
definitely.
betting correct score, like 3-0 Anaheim, 3-1 Anaheim, 4-1 Anaheim, potentially something along those lines. I could see that being definitely the final score in that kind of stratosphere, I guess, between these two teams tonight. All right, great stuff with Alex B. Smith on this Friday NHL Friday edition of the Ice Guys on this Friday card. We will have, of course, a Saturday show, noon Eastern tomorrow, but a shorter Saturday card than initially expected because of the COVID-19 postponements. But we will be here to break down what's left of the Saturday NHL card tomorrow, starting at noon Eastern time. So make sure you join us for that. All right. We'll wrap up the show with best bets. As always, Alex, we'll start with you. What do you like for best bet?
Yeah, we'll drive on over to the west side of Chicago. We'll take the Blackhawks and Predators to go into overtime. So with the regulation draw, plus 300 is my best bet tonight.
All right, Nashville, Chicago draw, plus 300. Best bet for Alex B. Smith in this Friday NHL card. My best bet for this slate tonight, I'm going to go with, I'm going to take the chance that Subban is starting, and I'm going to go with Pittsburgh team total over 3.5, minus 130. They've scored 4 goals, believe it or not, in 4 of their last 5 games. The 1-0 shutout win against Anaheim was the exception. So even though this is a team that's been playing some good defense, getting great goaltending, playing some lower scoring games, some tight checking hockey, again, 4 of the last 5 games, the Penguins have scored at least 4 goals. They've still shown that ability to put the puck in the net, and against a tired Sabres team, off 2 satisfying road wins in a row, now back-to-back on the road, schedule kind of mounting against them with all the games they've played in a short period of time, and the likelihood of Malcolm Subban in net tonight. Probably a good chance, in my opinion, for Pittsburgh to get to at least 4 goals. So Pittsburgh team total over 3.5, minus 130 for my best bet for this Friday card. That'll wrap up this edition of the Ice Guys. Thanks to everyone in the chat on YouTube for joining us live. Hit the like button. Make sure you do that on the way out. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Download the Ice Guys podcast whenever you can't watch the show live. For Alex B. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Friday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will talk to you again tomorrow on Saturday for another edition of the Ice Guys presented by the Hockey Podcast Network.